In the year 490 BC, at a time when the world was ruled by kings, empires, and the relentless pursuit of power, there stood a force so vast and so dominant that it seemed nothing could challenge it. The Persian Empire, stretching across continents, commanding armies beyond count, led by a ruler who believed that resistance was not just defiance, but a threat that had to be erased. And yet far to the west, across the sea, there existed a small and unlikely challenger, a city-state named Athens, a place not defined by its size or military strength, but by something far more dangerous: its belief in freedom, its refusal to submit, and its willingness to stand against an empire that had crushed countless others before it, a decision that would soon lead to one of the most defining moments in human history. Years before the clash that would echo through time, Athens had made a choice that could not be undone. Choosing to support a rebellion against Persian rule, an act of defiance that reached the ears of King Darius, and in his eyes, such defiance could not go unanswered, because an empire built on power could not allow even the smallest act of resistance to stand. And so he set into motion a plan not just to defeat Athens, but to destroy it, to make an example of it, to show the world that no one could challenge Persia and survive. And as preparations began, ships were gathered, soldiers were assembled, and a force was created with a single purpose: to cross the sea and bring Athens to its knees. As the Persian fleet sailed across the waters and approached the Greek coast, their destination became clear: the plains of Marathon, a wide and open battlefield where their numbers could be fully unleashed. And when the Athenians realized what was coming, they understood the reality of their situation. They were vastly outnumbered, standing alone without immediate allies, facing an army that had conquered lands far greater than their own. And yet, despite the fear, despite the odds, surrender was never truly an option. Because to surrender would mean losing everything they stood for: their independence, their identity, and the fragile idea that people could rule themselves rather than be ruled by a distant king. So instead of retreating or hiding behind their walls, they chose to march forward to meet the Persian army at Marathon, not because they believed victory was certain, but because they believed it was necessary. Led by a general named Miltiades, a man who understood that this battle would not be won through strength alone, because strength was something the Persians had in overwhelming abundance. What Athens needed was something else entirely: strategy, courage, and the willingness to risk everything on a plan that could either save them or lead to their complete destruction. When the two armies finally stood facing each other on the plains, the difference between them was undeniable: the Persians stretching across the horizon, confident in their numbers and their past victories, expecting this to be just another conquest, while the Athenians stood in disciplined formation, fewer in number but unshaken, knowing that behind them lay their homes, their families, and their future. And in that moment, as silence filled the space between the two forces, history itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Arriving at Euboea in midsummer after a successful campaign in Aegea, the Persian forces managed to besiege and capture Eretria. They then sailed to Attica, anchoring in the bay near the city of Marathon. The Athenian army, reinforced by a small contingent from Plataea, marched to Marathon and successfully blocked the two exits from the plain. A stalemate lasted for 5 days before Athens decided to attack, as under the cover of night, part of the Persian fleet had already sailed toward Athens. Despite being outnumbered, the Athenian hoplites proved more effective against the lightly armored Persian infantry. The Athenians crushed the Persian wings before turning inward and devastating the center. The Persian defeat at Marathon marked the end of the first Persian invasion of Greece, forcing their forces to withdraw back to Asia. Darius then began rebuilding his army in preparation for another invasion of Greece. However, in 486 BC, Egypt revolted, delaying the planned expedition. After Darius died, His son Xerxes I continued his father's plan and launched the Second Persian invasion of Greece in 480 BC. What had once been a position of strength for the Persians became a trap, their numbers working against them as they found themselves attacked from both sides, their formations collapsing, their confidence turning into confusion and then into panic as the realization spread that they were no longer in control of the battle, and as discipline broke and soldiers began to retreat. What had started as an organized assault turned into a desperate attempt to escape, with thousands fleeing toward their ships, while the Athenians pressed forward, refusing to give them the chance to recover. By the time the battle came to an end, the outcome was something few could have imagined. The mighty Persian army had been defeated, their losses devastating, while Athens, though not untouched by the cost of war, had achieved a victory that would resonate far beyond the battlefield, proving that even the greatest empire could be challenged, that numbers alone did not determine destiny, and that belief, strategy, and courage could change the course of history.